Is it true or not? Well, I've lived through several wars, and there was always a threat of World War III if we went too far or they went too far. Damn, I look old. The Korean War, the West supplied the South. The Soviet, communist, and dictator countries supplied the North Koreans. In fact, China even sent tens of thousands of troops down to help North Korea to fight us. Oh, we can't let it escalate. But we were actually there with men on the ground. It wasn't a proxy war, it was an actual war. Did it emerge to World War III? No, because it was still basically a proxy war, even though Americans were dying. And then there was Vietnam, where Russia and China supplied everything North Vietnam needed against us, and even helped train their troops sometimes. We were in the South, supposedly training the South Vietnamese army. I think we trained them pretty good on how to run and drop their weapons when shot at, because basically that's all I saw them do most of the time. There were some courageous South Vietnamese fighters, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of a proxy war. We went into Cambodia 30 days. Russia and China didn't really care about that. We bombed the hell out of Hanoi. Russia and China really didn't care about that. Nixon even mined the harbor to sink a couple of Russian supply ships. Now, they cared about that, but they wasn't going to start World War III with us unless we actually invaded the North with troops. We had to get the hell out. But once we left, the Soviet Union decided to take over Afghanistan. Guess who supplied all the Afghan fighters against Russia? The West and us, mainly us. Stinger missiles to shoot down their aircraft. Bin Laden, we supplied everything he needed to fight the Soviet Union and China. And they won. But God, it was going to turn into World War III if we kept supplying weapons to the Afghans. And then we got attacked, 9/11. So what do we have to do? We go in Afghanistan, knowing full well history has taught us that we could not win. When the Soviet Union got shot at, they brought their B-52s in and they didn't give a damn about women, children, or anybody. They leveled a damn city to show you don't shoot at a Russian aircraft or people, period. And they still lost. And we're going in. Oh, how are you? Oh, bang, bang, bang. I'm getting shot at. Can I return fire? Is there any women and children around or civilians? I see a few. We'll hold your fire until they get out of the way. Okay, I'll hide behind this tree. You can't fight a war with your hands tied behind your back like that. Did the Russians and the Chinese supply the Taliban like crazy in Afghanistan against us? Wait a minute. Wasn't it just a decade before we supplied the Afghan to fight the Russians and the Chinese? And now the Russians and the Chinese are supplying the Afghan to fight us? But it's going to be World War III. And then we went into Iraq. And Iran got into that one because they tried to take over Iraq and we'd supply Iraq weapons of mass destruction because Iran had them outnumbered like 5-1 or 10-1 or something, 20-1. It was outrageous how big the Iranian army was compared to the Iraqi army. So we neutralized them by giving them weapons of mass destruction to fight the Iranians. But now we're in Iraq. And Iran would love that territory and all of the oil wells. So they're supplying the people in Iraq weapons against us. My God, it's going to end up in World War III. Now, we're in a country in Europe where Europe should care about. But it's us again giving them weapons, money, and everything else for the most corrupt government in Europe. The EU wouldn't even allow them in. NATO would not allow them in. So corrupt, it was ridiculous in Ukraine. But they are kicking the Russians' ass. But wait a minute. Russia's threatened nuclear weapons. Well, didn't they every time in every war since World War II? Hasn't China threatened? But we've been playing China and Russia against each other since World War II. Just like they've been playing us and NATO against each other to keep us from really getting together. But we're going to be in World War III. I don't think so. The Russians are going to find out it's a stalemate. They lost a couple of 100,000 people, just like the Ukrainian civilians and military have lost. And it's going to end up a stalemate. No World War III. China knows, and Russia knows. If one nuclear weapon gets out of one of those hollows and starts heading up into space to go around the world towards some country, it's the end of life as we know it on this planet. 80 to 95% of us will be dead within a month, if not instantly. We will die a horrible death. Most of the rest of us left, 5%, 10% left, with cancers and stuff caused by radiation fallout and poisoning. There's no winning a nuclear war, and they know it. But we have somebody new in here now. Iran. What? They got nuclear weapons? Good possibility. We keep yelling North Korea, North Korea, North Korea. He's not that stupid. He has nuclear weapons for a decade or two now. But to launch them against South Korea or any American assets, he knows his country would be totally leveled instantly. And the Soviet Union and Russia that keeps them in food and stuff, Russia and China would cut them off. North Korea is only surviving because of China and Russia. And he's not going to start World War III. He might rattle the stick and make threats and shoot rockets in the air to say, hey, I'm important in this world stage. But I don't think he will ever be crazy enough to actually let off a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran, their leaders are extremely religious zealots. They are not really Muslims. They're ISIS type. There's three very peaceful Muslim religions. And the leadership of Iran and ISIS is not one of them. They're extremists, making up their own God, making up their own rules and regulations. And they are all for destroying all the other religions of the world and people of the world, even if they destroy themselves, because they will get all these virgins in heaven if they die for the cause. So I am a little bit worried about Iran and how close they are to nuclear weaponry. What do you think? Ukraine ain't going to get us into World War III, even if we put troops on the ground, which I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't already have them training the Ukraine forces and all of this new technology weaponry we're giving them and the latest tanks and everything. You just can't jump in and say, okay, I can drive a car, so a jet plane shouldn't be any harder. Wait a minute, where's the steering wheel? Where's the brake and gas pedal? What are all these buttons and levers and everything else for in here? You got to learn on each piece of equipment. I had 3 different driver's licenses in Vietnam, each one with 5 to 8 stamps on it of different vehicles I could drive, from track to tire to forklifts to those construction equipment, you name it. But these tanks we're giving them, it's one thing to learn to drive them, but they're very, very sophisticated with all kind of computer controls on their firing of munitions against the enemy. And you have to be able to know how to set all that up, control it, load it, and fire it so you actually hit something. It takes time and effort to learn that stuff. And when you're in the middle of heavy conflict, you don't really have time to do much of anything. So I wouldn't be surprised if our men aren't in these tanks. Should we be in Ukraine? Not like we are. $100 billion, more than all the other countries in the world together, about 4 times what all the other countries of the world have given so far. 4 times as much as all of them put together. And we're bankrupt. trillions of dollars in debt. In the next year or two, with this interest rate by the Fed going up, we're not going to take enough money in from taxes to even pay the interest on our debt. And we're giving away money where these other countries in Europe don't have the deficits we have because they don't pay their fair share for decades now. They don't go into debt to do stuff. They just don't write blank checks. Should we be supporting the most corrupt government in the world? They might be better off at Russian control. Instead of a dictator and the mob control. I don't know. But I don't think it's going to be World War III like all these news broadcasters. Hey, we're going to get into World War III. Remember, no matter what the name of your God is, talk to your children. Put your electronics down. Eat dinner together with your neighbors. Have a barbecue outside. There's been a lot of warm days this winter here on the East Coast where you can. Invite them over. Invite them to bring their own dishes sometimes so you don't have to go to all the expense yourself. And put your electronics down. Turn them off. And talk. And listen. There's some people like me that sometimes I listen and don't talk. Sometimes I talk and won't listen. But you got to learn to do both. You got to learn to interact with people and listen to what they say and think about what they say. We all have our own opinions about everything because what we hear, what we see, and sometimes what we hear and what we see is not real. It's fake. And so you got to look into what people tell you to see how real their memory is about situations in the world with God, with our country, with our leaders, and come to an opinion yourself about it. God bless you all. Y'all have a good evening now.